Leo lived in a world of quiet simplicity, a world that stood in stark contrast to the sprawling, opulent suburb he called home. His house, a modest but well-maintained mid-century ranch, was a relic in a neighborhood dominated by brand-new with 3-car garages and professionally manicured lawns. But if the house was a source of minor curiosity for his neighbors, his truck was a full-blown affront. It was a 1982 Ford F-150, a testament to a bygone era of brute force engineering and utilitarian design. The paint was faded, a blue that had long ago surrendered to the elements. There were rust spots on the wheel wells and a dent in the passenger door from a forgotten encounter with a stubborn fence post. The engine rumbled with a deep, resonant growl, a sound more akin to a grizzly bear waking from a long hibernation than a modern vehicle. The truck was a part of Leo, a workhorse that had been with him through thick and thin, a rolling monument to his first successful business venture. It was a vehicle that had character, history, and, most importantly to him, purpose. To his neighbors, however, it was an eyesore. Brenda and Kevin were the self-appointed social arbiters of Whispering Pines. Their house, a glistening monument to modern architecture, with floor-to-ceiling windows, and a perfectly symmetrical stone facade, was their throne. Brenda, with her perfectly coiffed hair and a perpetual look of elegant disapproval, and Kevin, with his perpetually stressed expression and a penchant for expensive watches, saw Leo's truck not as a vehicle, but as a blemish on the otherwise pristine canvas of their neighborhood. Their campaign of passive-aggressive commentary began subtly. At first, it was just glances and whispers. When Leo was outside raking leaves, they would slow down as they drove by in their gleaming black SUV, a fleeting look of disgust on their faces. Then came the direct, yet still thinly veiled comments. "You know, Leo," Brenda said one afternoon, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness as she caught him taking out his trash. "We're just so concerned about the curb appeal of the neighborhood. A lot of the homes around here are being listed for millions, and a well-maintained street helps everyone's property values." She paused, her eyes drifting pointedly to his truck. "I'm sure you understand, Leo, a man of few words and a great deal of patience, simply smiled. It's been well maintained for over 40 years, Brenda. Runs like a champ." "Oh, I'm sure it does," she replied, the saccharine tone hardening. "But it's a bit rustic, isn't it? Perhaps a garage would be better for it." He knew what she was implying, hide the ugly truck, but he had no intention of doing so. The truck was part of his routine. He drove it to work every day, to the place where his true life took place. A world away from the manicured lawns and judgmental glances of Whispering Pines. The mockery escalated. The next time he saw Kevin, he was standing at the end of his driveway, a garden hose in his hand, a look of faux sympathy on his face. "Tough break, Leo. I saw some oil spots on the asphalt this morning. Looks like that old heap is leaking. You know, you can get a good deal on a new sedan these days." "Just saying." Leo checked the spot where Kevin was pointing. There was no oil, just water. Kevin was creating a problem where none existed. "Thanks for the heads up, Kevin," Leo said, his tone still even, "but I checked the fluid levels. This morning, she's bone dry." Kevin's face fell, the brief moment of triumph evaporating. "Oh, well, you can't be too careful." The comments became more pointed, the stares more brazen. The neighbors would talk about him in hushed tones at neighborhood barbecues, their disapproval as thick as the smoke from the grills. They would laugh when the old truck rumbled to life, the loud exhaust a jarring note in the silent, affluent street. Leo paid them no mind. He was a man with a singular focus, and the petty dramas of suburban life were of little consequence. His focus was on Leo's Automotive Group, a collection of 7 sprawling car dealerships that spanned the greater metropolitan area. He had started his empire from a single, run-down lot, a place where he had spent long hours restoring old cars, learning the trade, and building a reputation for honesty and integrity. His business had grown, first by a single dealership, then another, then a chain. He had a fleet of luxury vehicles at his disposal, gleaming sports cars, sleek electric vehicles, massive SUVs, but he never drove them. His old truck was his anchor, a reminder of where he came from and the hard work that had gotten him there. It was a symbol of authenticity in a world of manufactured appearances, and Leo's authenticity was a direct threat to Brenda and Kevin's carefully curated image. The pinnacle of the neighborhood's social calendar was the annual Whispering Pines Summer Gala, a black tie event held in a sprawling estate at the end of the street. This year, it was a charity fundraiser for a local hospital, and the main prize of the silent auction was a brand new car, a luxury sedan donated by a local dealership. Kevin was on the fundraising committee, and he had been bragging about the prize for weeks. It's a brand new 2024 Vesper V7. He announced at a block party, his chest puffed out. Top of the line. Worth almost $100,000. It's going to bring in a fortune for the hospital. He looked at Leo, a small, triumphant smile playing on his lips. Maybe it'll even inspire some people to trade in there. Well, you know. Leo just nodded. He knew. Brenda's final, most egregious offense came just 2 days before the gala. He was washing his truck in his driveway, giving the old beast a bath to prepare it for the week. Brenda walked over, her face a mask of concern. "Leo, a word," she said, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. "We've had a few complaints about your truck. The aesthetics, the noise. It's a bit much for the neighborhood. We've even considered going to the HOA board." Leo stopped spraying. "The hose, the HOA. Yes. We just feel that, given the caliber of this neighborhood, we all need to do our part to maintain a certain standard. Your truck, it's bringing down the standard." Leo's patience, a well he thought was endless, finally began to run dry. "Brenda, my truck is fully insured and registered. It's in my driveway. It's not bothering anyone. It's bothering us," she said, her tone suddenly devoid of all pretense. "It looks like it belongs in a junkyard. It's an eyesore. And quite frankly, it makes the rest of us look bad." Leo took a deep breath. "Brenda, I'm not moving my truck. It's a matter of principle. It's my property, and I'm entitled to park it in my own driveway." "Fine," she said, a flash of genuine anger in her eyes. "But don't be surprised if the HOA gets involved. We all have a right to a beautiful neighborhood, and your truck. It's just not." She turned on her heel and walked away, her mission completed. Later that evening, an official-looking envelope was slipped into his mailbox. It was from the HOA, with a notice about an upcoming meeting to discuss parking violations and property aesthetics. The notice was vague, but Leo knew exactly what it was about. Brenda had gone through with it. The gala was the next night. Leo decided to go, a rare indulgence for him. He donned his one suit, an old but well-fitting charcoal gray number that he'd bought for a family wedding years ago. He looked the part, at least for a man who wasn't worried about appearances. When he arrived, the scene was a symphony of wealth and artifice. Expensive gowns, tailored suits, and a constant, low murmur of people networking and showing off. Kevin was holding court by the silent auction table, gesturing to the sleek, black sedan on a pedestal in the center of the room. It was the 2024 Vesper V7, a masterpiece of modern engineering and design. Kevin's eyes lit up when he saw Leo. He saw an opportunity for one last public jab. Leo. "You came," Kevin said, a broad, mocking smile on his face. "Glad to see you're slumming it with us. We're all here trying to raise money for a good cause, and the big prize is this beauty." He patted the hood of the car. "You wouldn't know much about these, of course. All the latest technology. Don't think they'd be able to fit a carburetor in this thing." A few people nearby chuckled. Leo didn't flinch. "It's a beautiful car, Kevin. I'm glad you could get one for the auction." "Oh, I didn't get it," Kevin said, his voice dropping to a proud whisper. "I have my connections, but I'm not that connected. This car was donated by the owner of the dealership himself. He's a big philanthropist. The kind of guy who understands the value of a good community, you know. Not the kind of guy who drives a 30-year-old truck that looks like it's about to fall apart." Leo simply smiled. "You never know, Kevin. The most valuable things in life aren't always the shiniest." Kevin laughed. "That's a good one, Leo. But let's be real. This car is going to change someone's life. It's a testament to the fact that hard work and a bit of luck can take you far. Not everyone is so lucky, of course." He winked at the crowd, a clear jab at Leo. "Some people are just content with the bare minimum." Leo looked at the car on the pedestal, a small glint in his eye. He knew the car. He had seen it on the showroom floor just last week. He knew the owner. He knew the value. And he knew that Kevin had no idea what he was talking about. He decided to let the man have his moment of perceived superiority. The truth, he knew, would be far more satisfying than any comeback. He walked away from the silent auction table, leaving Kevin to bask in the glow of the car. He mingled, making small talk with a few people who were polite enough to ignore the gossip. But all around him, he could hear the whispers about his truck, about the HOA meeting, about the scandal of it all. It was clear that Brenda and Kevin had worked hard to paint him as the neighborhood's eccentric pariah, the man who was holding back progress and property values with his rusty old vehicle. The silent auction was about to begin. The auctioneer, a polished man in a tuxedo, took the stage. He began to introduce the Vesper, waxing poetic about its features and luxury. The bids began to pour in, a flurry of hands and numbers. Kevin was standing in the front, shouting out bids, trying to show off his financial power. Brenda was by his side, a look of pure, unadulterated smugness on her face. The bidding for the car was nearing its end. It had reached $90,000, and only two people were left in the running: Kevin and a man from the other end of the neighborhood, a rival hedge fund manager named Gordon. Kevin bid $92,000. Gordon bid $93,000. Kevin, with a sneer, bid $95,000, going once, going twice. The auctioneer said, his voice full of drama. Kevin turned to Brenda, a look of triumph on his face. He had won. He had secured the most expensive item at the gala, cementing his status as the neighborhood's alpha male. But just as the auctioneer was about to slam down his gavel, a voice cut through the air. $100,000. Everyone turned. The voice was calm, clear, and came from the back of the room. It was Leo. The room went silent. Kevin's mouth dropped open. Brenda stared, her eyes wide with shock. $100,000. For a car he was supposedly too poor to appreciate. The move was so unexpected, so bold, that it completely stunned the crowd. The auctioneer, momentarily flustered, pointed at Leo. "Sir, did you say 100,000? Leo nodded. "I did." Kevin, his face a mix of rage and disbelief, sputtered, "Leo, what do you think you're doing? You can't afford that." Leo just smiled. "I've got the check right here, Kevin." The auctioneer, a professional who had seen it all, recovered quickly. $100,000 to the gentleman in the back. "A fantastic bid. Thank you, sir. A wonderful donation to the hospital." The gavel came down with a resounding clap. The crowd applauded, a few people even cheering. But Leo's victory was a quiet one. He walked to the front, filled out the paperwork for the donation, and left the car where it was. As he walked past Kevin and Brenda, unable to contain her outrage, leaned in. "That was a stunt, Leo, a one-time stunt. You just wasted your life savings on a car you'll never even drive." "Maybe," Leo said softly, "but it's not for me." He walked out of the gala and got into his old truck, the engine roaring to life with a defiant growl. He drove home, the headlights illuminating the familiar, quiet streets of Whispering Pines. The truck felt good under him, a solid, honest piece of machinery. He thought about Brenda and Kevin, and he knew that their ridicule wasn't over. But for the first time, he felt a sense of power. Not because of money, but because he was finally in a position to teach them a lesson about what really matters. He was a man of quiet substance in a world of loud appearances. And tomorrow morning, the show would really begin. The engine rumbled, and Leo drove into his driveway, a confident smile on his face. The sun was about to rise on a new day, and a new chapter in the saga of the old truck and the judgmental neighbors. The stage was set. The next morning, the sun rose over Whispering Pines, casting a golden light on the perfectly manicured lawns and the meticulously arranged homes. It was a picture of suburban bliss, a scene straight out of a real estate magazine. But for Brenda and Kevin, the picture was tainted by a single, glaring flaw. Leo's old, battered truck sat in his driveway, an ugly, rusted reminder of their public humiliation the night before. Brenda, still seething from the gala, had barely slept. She had spent the night dissecting the incident, replaying Kevin's face as the gavel came down. The thought of Leo, the man with the beat-up truck, outbidding her husband for the main prize, was a poison that had soured her victory. She was convinced it was all a show, a moment of fleeting bravado that he would soon regret. He probably cashed out his 401k, she fumed to Kevin over coffee. Or maybe he took out a second mortgage. It was a stupid, desperate move. He'll be broke in a month. Kevin, a man who had built his career on outward displays of success, was less concerned about Leo's finances and more concerned about his own public image. The look of utter disbelief on his face at the gala had been captured in a dozen photos, and he was sure it would be the talk of the neighborhood for weeks. "We can't let this stand," he muttered. "He's making a mockery of us. We need to do something about that truck, and we need to do it now." Their plan was simple, and in their minds, foolproof. They would escalate the HOA issue. They would circulate a petition, gather signatures, and demand that the board enforce a bylaw they were sure existed, one about unseemly vehicles and negative property impacts. They were confident that with their influence and the general desire of the neighbors to maintain their property values, they could force Leo to get rid of his truck once and for all. Leo, in the meantime, was at peace. He had woken up early, made a cup of coffee, and was sitting on his porch, watching the world wake up. He had a few calls to make, but he was in no hurry. He had a plan, and the first part of it was already in motion. An hour later, a sleek, unmarked transport truck, the kind used to move high-end luxury cars, pulled up to Leo's house. Two men in neat gray uniforms stepped out, and with practiced precision, began to roll out a ramp. A few neighbors, on their way to work, slowed down. Their curiosity piqued Brenda, who had been watching from her kitchen window, clutched her coffee mug. "See," she said to Kevin, "he's so broke, he can't even afford to drive it. He has to have it shipped somewhere." But then, the truck began to unload. It wasn't the Vesper that had been on the pedestal at the gala. It was a gleaming brand new 2024 Vesper V8, a custom mortared masterpiece in midnight black. It was a model so new, so exclusive, that it had not yet been released to the general public. As the two men carefully rolled the car down the ramp, its chrome glinting in the morning light, it was clear that this was no ordinary vehicle. Brenda's jaw dropped. Kevin, who had just come to the window, let out a low whistle. "What in the world?" The transport truck men, with a nod to Leo, took a moment to admire the vehicle themselves. They then pulled out a detail kit and began to wipe down every surface, ensuring it was spotless. A few more neighbors had stopped, now standing on the sidewalk, their mouths agape. Brenda, her mind racing, walked outside, her mission of confrontation forgotten. "Leo," she called out, her voice a mix of confusion and indignation. "What is this?" Leo, still sitting on his porch, simply smiled. This is a favor. It's for you and Kevin." Her eyes widened. "A favor for us? We're the ones trying to get you kicked out of the neighborhood." "I know," Leo said, taking a sip of his coffee. "But I believe in giving back to the community." Kevin walked over, his face a mask of suspicion. "What's the catch, Leo?" "No catch," Leo said. "The car from the auction was a donation to a good cause. This one is a bit of a thank you. You see, the person who donated the Vesper V7 to the gala last night was me. I own the dealership." The words hung in the air, a verbal detonation that shook the very foundations of their carefully constructed reality. The crowd of neighbors who had gathered to watch the spectacle gasped. Kevin's face went white. Brenda's a deep scarlet. You're the owner," Brenda stammered, her voice barely a whisper. But your truck?" "My truck," Leo said, a gentle, knowing smile on his face, is a part of me. It's the truck I used to make my first car sale. The truck I used to haul tools and parts when I was building my first lot. It's a reminder of where I came from. He paused, looking at the horrified faces of his neighbors. It keeps me grounded. Kevin, trying to regain some semblance of control, pointed at the brand new Vesper. And this, why this one? Well, Leo said, you wanted to increase your property values, right? And you said you wanted to get me to trade in my old heap. So, here's a deal. This is a Vesper V8. It's on loan to you, for as long as you want it. No charge, no strings. Just one condition. You have to park it in your driveway, right next to your SUV, and you have to drive it everywhere. No hiding it in the garage. No leaving it on the street. It has to be visible, for all the world to see. Brenda and Kevin exchanged a look of pure, unadulterated horror. They were a couple who lived by appearances, who demanded that everything be perfect, down to the last detail. But this was a car that was so new, so exclusive, so valuable, that it would scream, look at me, to the entire world. It was a symbol of their own materialism, their own hypocrisy, now thrown in their faces in the most public way possible. But why? Brenda asked, her voice trembling. Because, Leo said, standing up and walking over to his truck, I want you to experience what it's like to be judged. I want you to feel the weight of a public persona that is not your own. I want you to know what it's like to have people assume things about you, to make fun of you, to think you're a fraud. And I want you to see that a car, no matter how valuable, is just a car. It doesn't define you. He got into his truck, the engine roaring to life with a sound that, to the neighbors, no longer sounded like a rusty old piece of junk, but a confident, powerful growl. He drove away, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. The saga of the old truck and the judgmental neighbors was over. Brenda and Kevin were left with the Vesper, a constant, silent reminder of their arrogance. They never complained about the truck again. The HOA meeting was cancelled. And Leo, the man who lived a life of quiet simplicity, continued to drive his old truck, a symbol of a man who knew his true worth and who had taught his neighbors a very valuable lesson about what really matters.